From the leg-breaking Muay Thai kicks of Buakaw,
The living legend, Buakaw,
to the earth-shattering strikes of Mike Tyson. There's over 180 martial arts in the world, each with thousands of its own variations and unique coaches and teachers.
You're now a proud owner of one of Diamond Days, a ninja teaching flex.
But there's one martial art that stands out that's very different from the rest: Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. Ever since I was a kid, I've always been fascinated with martial arts. From Fight Club to The Last Samurai, Rocky, Karate Kid, and Creed, fighting has been depicted in many ways in many forms.
Are you not entertained?
I know Kung Fu.
Show me. You guys aren't doing the dramatic pose, are you?
And while writing this script, I was trying to find a fight, real life or in Hollywood, that really depicts Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to someone who does not practice it. But after hours of searching, I honestly couldn't find one except for one. Let me show it to you. Now this obviously isn't Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but there's something about this strike right here that has stuck in my memory for over 20 years. And I want to pose a question to you. What can you see in this single strike that reflects itself in Jiu-Jitsu? We'll come back to this in a bit. Unlike most other martial arts though, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is not flashy. You'll never see a dramatic win, and to the untrained eye, it just looks like two people rolling around. But in a world where almost every martial arts focuses on speed, strength, and size, and beating your opponent with your hands and feet into submission, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu requires none of that. I weigh 200 pounds of mostly muscle, and I was submitted multiple times by a man that was 20 years older than me and 50 pounds lighter. And this video is for anyone that is thinking about getting into Jiu-Jitsu or any martial arts but has not yet done so. In this video, I'm going to show you the things that I've learned from the first month of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I still remember my first day walking into the Jiu-Jitsu gym, probably because it was only a month ago. Now, I'm definitely not foreign to walking into gyms. I'm currently sitting at 200 pounds and I'm prepping for a bodybuilding competition in 10 weeks. And I've been strength training and lifting for 10 years and playing sports since I was 4. But I'm not gonna lie, walking into a Jiu-Jitsu gym for the first time ever felt a lot like being 10 years old and walking into a new elementary school for the first time as a new kid. You have all those ridiculous anxieties like, what if the kids don't like me, or what if they're mean to me? Or even worse, what if you get beaten up by a girl? Now, there's a lot of reasons to be nervous when joining a new gym, but I can assure you all of those reasons are ridiculous. I found nothing but nice and welcoming people, and I had an absolute blast my first day. I knew by the end of the first class that I was going to be hooked and doing this for a while. And I've had absolutely zero issues or incidents with anyone. I haven't even seen other people have any kind of issue with one another. There's a tremendous amount of respect shown in my gym, and if you're ever in a gym that doesn't have a high degree of respect between its members, you should probably find a new gym.
No, I don't like you. I think you're a fake cop. The sound of your piss hitting the urinal? It sounds feminine. If we were in the wild, I would attack you. Even if you weren't in my food chain, I would go out of my way to attack you.
Now, if you're thinking about getting into Jiu-Jitsu, you can probably walk into most gyms around America and they'll let you roll for a free class or two just so you can get a feel for it, or at least that's how my gym worked. Now, I can only speak for my gym, but I'm also assuming most gyms are ran pretty similar. First class is very low energy, basically just practicing technique, and then there's no sparring or competition rolling. So you have absolutely nothing to worry about on your skill level or not knowing anything. All the drills in the first class are very slow and methodical to train technique and form. Now, for my gym, class 2 is where we learn submissions and chokes, and then class 3 is open roll, where I get tapped out about 5 times and headlocked for 3 of the 6 minutes. It's an absolute blast. But you absolutely don't have to roll with anybody in competition classes early. I kind of just jumped into the deep end with it. Now, if there's 2 types of sports that don't go together, it's bodybuilding and jiu-jitsu. They could not be more polar opposite on the spectrum of what's required for their competition. Immediately, I realized that my cardio is trash and the style of strength training and lifting I was doing was not adequate for jiu-jitsu. Bodybuilding focuses on size, extremely low body fat, and overall symmetry of the body. It cares nothing about your endurance, mobility, or flexibility. On the other hand, jiu-jitsu requires extreme endurance and cardio, as well as a high degree of mobility and flexibility. So here's a few things that I switched in my fitness routine so that I can compete in bodybuilding and jiu-jitsu. 20-pound plate vest, walking a mile in the morning. 1 hour on the stair stepper or treadmill with a 15% incline and the 20-pound weight vest. Every single lift I do now is slow. Each rep is a minimum of 4 to 6 seconds, and the majority of my lifts are 12 reps or more, keeping the muscle under constant tension to train muscular endurance and fatigue. This is very different than strength training, which a lot of times focuses on explosiveness. But in jiu-jitsu, explosiveness will just gas you out really quick. Pretty much all of jiu-jitsu, your opponent is going to be in front of you, and that's where all of the weight's going to be. So I started doing a lot of heavy training with goblet squats and front squats to strengthen my T-spine. I've also been doing a ton of lunges and core work. If you guys are interested in a more in-depth breakdown of my workouts, I can make a dedicated video to this. If you're a man watching this, then you 100% for sure are probably familiar with loneliness that comes with being a man, especially if you're a man who dedicates himself to developing and honing your skills. I'm a firm believer that solitude is one of the best ways to grow. But oftentimes the journey of self-development, we can take it a bit too far. Unchecked loneliness can wreak havoc on your life. It can lead to allowing toxic people into your life, suffering from unhealthy relationships, and even depression and suicide. But you know what the cure for all of that is? Rolling around the ground with other sweaty men. Even after only a month of practicing jiu-jitsu, I now know that I can travel to almost any city or town in America and probably find a gym that practices jiu-jitsu. And in that gym, there's going to be potentially new friends with whom I can share a common interest with. If you're a bit too much of a solo guy, I'd recommend jiu-jitsu or some kind of martial arts. You'll instantly become a part of a massive community where you can connect with other people who share a common interest in everything you're doing. And if you're currently in a mentally bad place, I think jiu-jitsu is a great place to dig yourself out and connect with others at the same time. I definitely noticed an increase in quality of my mental health just by going to jiu-jitsu. I don't know if it's because I'm just learning new things and I like doing that, or if it's the social aspect, but nevertheless, one of the things I first noticed was my mental health was increasing. Now, I believe all relationships in life are built upon mutual respect. However, in order to gain someone's respect, you must first become someone respectable. This can be very difficult to achieve for a lot of young men, especially if you have no role models or nobody to base yourself off of who is respectable. If you're a young man watching this, one of the best things that I can tell you to do to improve your life is to develop yourself into a respectable man. Now, there's many ways to do this, such as holding yourself to high standards, not complaining, stealing, or cheating on others. You can also earn your respect by making a lot of money or going to the gym and getting bigger. People tend to respect those that are larger than them. There's something primal about it. But one of the best ways to develop self-respect is by putting yourself in an environment that demands respect. Now, a weight room's a great place to start, but we often learn best by watching and mimicking people. And we also become like the people that we surround ourselves with. And if you surround yourself with people that exude self-respect, you're likely to develop it yourself. Conversely, if you join a martial arts, you'll be thrust into an environment that demands respect. Just like facing a grizzly bear in the woods, when you shake hands or roll with a black belt, you know you're entering into a situation where you could be severely hurt. They're not going to, but it's still there. The only thing you really can do with a higher belt is leave your ego at the door, listen, learn, and try to improve. In jiu-jitsu, there's a lot of respect shown to one another, which I think is an invaluable trait for anyone to develop, and it's one of the first things I noticed when joining the gym. Self-respect is one of those subtle traits that we don't really talk about a whole lot, but it's one of those traits that actually pays massive dividends in every aspect of your life and every relationship you ever have, especially the relationship you have with yourself. Now, in life, there's a few things that you can do that can massively improve your confidence. These are also things that can't be faked, usually. I remember the first time I deadlifted 500 pounds, and I said, holy shit, I just lifted 500 pounds. That level of strength can't be faked. You either can do it or you can't. And that's also what I love about jiu-jitsu. It's a zero-sum game. You either win or you lose. You submit your opponent or they submit you. There's no room for interpretation or faking it. And there's a great quote that I love that depicts this. Fighting purifies the soul and reveals the true character of an individual. It strips away the pretenses and exposes the essence of one's being. In the realm of martial arts, every fight is an opportunity for growth, self-discovery, and the continual refinement of one's technique. It is a lifelong journey of self-improvement. And if you're a man or woman looking to develop your confidence, there's no better way than a martial arts that you can utilize forever. Jiu-jitsu is the perfect combat sport to do so, and unlike lifting 500 pounds, jiu-jitsu is a skill that you will be able to carry with you for the rest of your life, whether you're 20 years old or 70 years old. Now let's come back to the shot with Achilles. let me ask you this again. What do you think this shot and jiu-jitsu have in common? Here's a better question. If you were the director producing the movie Troy, how would you depict Achilles? And for those that don't know, Achilles was basically like the greatest warrior of all time. He was a man who was basically one step away from a demigod. His skills as a warrior were equal to none. So how do you depict a man who is literally the personification of like a master warrior? Well, I personally think that this single strike is the perfect cinematographic depiction of a perfect warrior. Now, if you're a cinema buff like me, then there's a ton of iconic fight scenes. But for over 20 years, this shot has always stuck in my head as one of the most impressive blows in all of cinema. But I never understood or really could articulate why, until I rolled with a brown belt. Now, if you're thinking about getting into jiu-jitsu, you probably are aware that there's a big difference between a white belt and a black belt. But trust me, you have absolutely no idea how big that gap is until you roll with one. Brandon was the first brown belt that I rolled with, and he's 20 years my age. And let me tell you, there was absolutely nothing I could do to this man. Rolling with him, every inch felt like I was running a marathon. Now, if you're not familiar, there's white belt, blue belt, purple belt, brown belt, and black belt. Now, if blue belts are Gardner stakes, then brown belts are literally anacondas. And I haven't rolled with a black belt yet, but I'm going to assume there's something like a Titanoboa. Not only was rolling with him insanely hard, on top of it, I knew he wasn't even trying. He might as well have been filing his taxes while rolling with me. The skill level and the difference between each belt in jiu-jitsu is truly mind-boggling and simultaneously inspiring. I knew there was a wide gap, but I really didn't understand it until I started rolling. From white belt to blue to purple, brown, and black, each one feels completely different in how they roll and their difficulty. As I began to watch and learn from the higher belts in jiu-jitsu, I realized that they are fighting a different game, despite us both practicing jiu-jitsu. While I was learning the fundamentals and trying to survive, the game of the brown belt or black belt is an entirely different one. At the higher levels, there's much more of an energy game and a counter-striking going on. Something as simple as a misplaced thumb or an incorrectly rotated knee or elbow can result in you being taken down or submitted or putting into a worse position. There are some extreme nuances and intricacies in the higher levels of jiu-jitsu, and the purple belts and up also seem to be extremely good at energy conservation. It actually reminds me a lot of World War II dogfighting tactics, where planes with a higher altitude could control a dogfight by conserving their energy and slowly wearing down their targets. The attacking airplane would dive in for opportunities when they arise and then play it safe when there's no advantage. Watching two black belts roll in jiu-jitsu is a lot less like watching a UFC fight and a lot more like watching two chess grandmasters go at it. But back to Achilles. So what does this shot and jiu-jitsu have in common? Well, in my opinion, one word: precision. Just like the higher levels of jiu-jitsu and any combat sport, the variables that separate one another are not necessarily strength and size, although those things do matter. The thing that seems so mesmerizing about watching someone who is a master at their craft is their precision. There's only a few millimeters of space where Achilles could strike a shield with the point of his sword, and only a master like Achilles could have had the strength and precision to stagger his opponent with such a strike. Now, I know this is Hollywood, and there's probably never been a man in the history of striking shields so precisely with the tip of his sword that he staggered his opponent. But even though it's a fictional fable, I think this strike is one of the perfect displays of precision produced in all of cinema over the past 100 years of fighting movies. From the strike to the stance to the hunt of the blade, everything about this shot is a perfect depiction of a master warrior using his skills to his absolute limits. And after only a month of jiu-jitsu, I firmly believe that every person should develop their capacity to defend themselves. But more than that, there's also something very terrifying about jiu-jitsu. Unlike many other forms of competition that can be open for interpretation or a random lucky haymaker that ends the match, jiu-jitsu is slow and methodical. There's no wild haymakers. There's no sudden ending to rounds from KOs of your opponent. You either beat your opponent with tactics and technique, or your opponent beats you. Unlike boxing, Muay Thai, or MMA, Jiu-Jitsu doesn't care how old you are. It doesn't care how strong you are or how big you are. A 130-pound girl can submit a 200-pound man. The only thing that Jiu-Jitsu cares about seems to be your proficiency, your technical ability, and your precision. The strength and size does help, but it's not a end-all be-all. So if you're watching this and you're someone who loves to test themselves, loves to learn and grow and refine your skills, but you have yet to get into Jiu-Jitsu, but you're thinking about it, I cannot recommend it enough, and I hope this video has convinced you to at least check out a gym or two in your area. Lastly, if there's one last lesson that I've learned from the month of Jiu-Jitsu, it's that I have a very long road ahead of me, and the game that I'm going to be playing 5 years from now is going to be very different from the one today. Hope you guys like that video. If you guys have any questions or anything, hit them in the comments. If you want to see like more detailed videos on my diet or regimen for bodybuilding and Jiu-Jitsu and strength training, I can make some videos on that. You can also follow me on Instagram where I post some of the stuff that I'm doing. But other than that, I think think that martial arts, whether it's boxing, kickboxing, or jiu-jitsu, whatever it is you're doing, I think it's a critical skill for anybody to learn, no matter their age. Whether you're 50 years old or 20 years old, there's definitely a certain level of confidence that comes from your combat ability. And even as a white belt, like I know, I get wrecked constantly, so like mine is nothing. But nevertheless, one thing I've noticed, people that know how to fight or they know how to defend themselves or handle themselves in a fight, they move very differently than people that don't. And if you're a guy who's developing himself and you're single and you're trying to be the best version of yourself, having the knowledge or the skill to defend and protect yourself is a critical skill. You can literally see it in people when they are confident in their ability of themselves or not. All in all, I think it's a great skill to have no matter what. So yeah, that's about it, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video.